to guest speak on our topic about Sarah Everard tonight, today. Sorry. Do you want to go ahead and educate us all on what's happening here in the UK?
Sure. Well, there is big doings at the moment because of a young woman called Sarah Everard, who was 33. Unfortunately, her body was found last week in the London area. She'd been missing for 2 weeks. There was a big search on, and the person who is allegedly the murderer was unfortunately a Met police officer. This leads into a great deal of anger, generally felt by a lot of women nationwide, but especially in London. So as a consequence of that, there was at the weekend just gone, because this all only happened within the last 7 days, that her body was found and somebody was charged. There was a peaceful vigil planned in Clapham Common on Saturday. The organisers asked permission from the police. They were denied permission because of COVID regulations, but it went ahead anyway. Now, an interesting aspect to this is the Duchess of Cambridge, William's wife, Catherine, turned up, the future Queen of England. Apparently without any security around her, although I don't believe that for a minute, but the footage that you see on social media and in the news is her walking up just casually dressed, looking at the flowers. It looked like it was a bandstand that was the epicentre of the vigil and the protest, which the vigil grew into a protest Saturday, grew very large. Not just women and girls, a lot of men there. As time went on, things got a bit rough, and the police began moving people and arresting people. It has been noted, I don't know how accurate this is, but it has been noted that the event was hijacked by other groups with a vested interest in being anti-police and other organisations. So that grew the size of the protest. So there's been some controversy about that, and then yesterday the protest continued at Parliament Square outside Downing Street. There was a lot of people in London, and again it was mixed. It's not just women. There's plenty of men that are getting involved, which is good to see. So the reason why I wanted to talk about it today is because this isn't just stopping at Sarah Everard. You know, God bless her and rest in peace. I think this is like the touch paper, the blue touch paper, and I think this is about to just go global, because there's been a lot of women murdered by men within the last 12 months. Now, some people argue it's lockdown effect. Other people say that's nothing to do with it. This would be going on and otherwise, although it has been noted that domestic violence instances have increased generally. But I think it's something that women have been growing steadily in anger about for quite a long time. Not just about women being murdered, about general violence against women. Sexual violence, rape. There's just been anger building, frustration building. Apparently things are that bad with the justice system in this country, in Great Britain, that the amount of rapes that get prosecuted if they make it to court, even though reporting of rape has increased, is pitiful. So there seems to be a bit of a crisis going on generally.
So what happened in the crime with Sarah? Because I don't know.
Right, so the details of it, as far as we know, what's been reported in the press is, so a couple of weeks ago, she lives in London. I think she was going back to either Brixton or around that area, South London area. That's why the vigils and the protests were concentrated on Clapham Common. And so she was walking back from her friends at night, was meant to be going back to her house, didn't make it back. The first thing you knew about it was a couple of articles in the paper, missing, been reported missing by friends and family. And then the days went on and the days went on. Then it became bigger news. As you know, you've worked in the newspapers, you know how it works. The articles got bigger. And then it became like more front page stuff. And the thing is, I hate to say it, but she's an attractive young woman, so that's going to get more attention. So yeah, nice photos of her. And then shocker, out of the blue comes this thing about this Met police officer who's married, has children. He's arrested, charged, and apparently self-harmed while he was in the cells at the police station. Deliberately injured himself twice and was taken to hospital, then released. And there are rumours, and at this point it's rumours, and you know how these Chinese whispers work, that there is a lot more to this than meets the eye. Now, what that means, I don't know. But this is what people are saying on social media. That it's, in other words, this isn't a straightforward abduction of a young woman and a murder. There is something going on. Now, whether it's the police angle, who Sarah Everard knew, what she was involved in, we don't know, but that's the current situation. But it's the level of anger that's erupted from women and men, has to be said, socially, culturally, the level of anger. And especially with there being Women's Day, International Women's Day last Monday, which we spoke about. On that day in Parliament, Labour MP Jess Phillips read out the names of all the women that have been murdered over the last 12 months, and it took her 4 minutes to read out all the names of women that have been murdered in Britain by their partners or by somebody that they knew. So, as I said, situation in crisis, sheer anger. Now, at the same time, in Australia, there are massive demonstrations in all the cities in Australia over a crisis that they're having. Now, theirs is centred on a member of their parliament who has had a rape allegation brought against him. Apparently, it hasn't been handled very well by the powers that be. Again, great deal of anger, not just women out on the streets, men out on the streets as well, all across Australia. So I think this is the start of a global, this is my personal view, obviously, but I think this is the start of a global thing that's going to really start now, about the violence against women and girls in all its forms. It just feels like people have had enough of seeing the headlines. You know, another woman killed, another hideous event. Everybody's just had enough. They want it to stop. And I thought it was one of the most interesting aspects that's come out of this is there was a Green Party MP in the House of Lords that stood up last week and said that as soon as she could, she was going to try and introduce legislation to put a curfew on men in Britain after 6 p.m. So men were allowed out after 6 p.m. Now, she said...
Hang on. Okay.
Yep.
Say that last bit again.
A curfew on men.
Who's having that?
So it's a Green Party MP. I can't remember her name. She's an older lady. So she said as soon as she gets the opportunity to introduce some legislation, she wants to introduce into law that there is a curfew against men after 6 p.m. They're not allowed out on the streets to ensure the safety of women and girls. Now, it has to be said, in subsequent interviews, she said this to make a point, and the point was women have been told this for decades. I'm sure you remember around the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, or any time there is a threat like this, women are told not to go out. And her point is, why should women change their behaviour when it's men that are the ones that are doing the killing and the violence. So, you know, so she's saying it's completely unacceptable to ask women to do that. And at the time when the Yorkshire Ripper murders were going on, the Reclaim the Night marches started in cities across England. Lots of women going out in demonstrations at, I think, midnight, saying, no, why do we have to stay in? You know, why don't men get asked to change their behaviour? Why is it us, we're the victims? So she was making a point. I don't think she was being serious, but the reason why I bring it up is the reaction that it got. There has been uproar. It's you know, from male commentators mainly and females as well, which I expected some of the females. I think Janet Street Porter wrote something in the Daily Mail, but there you go, she's always writing things in the Daily Mail about why we shouldn't be asking men to, well, she was making a point.
Hang on, what did she say? Who
She
said
said,
what?
why are we asking men to do this? It's stupid. It's not going to achieve anything.
What, stay in after 6?
That men should not go out. So
not go out at all?
Yeah, that's it. You're a curfew. You're not allowed out.
After 6? After 6?
Yep, after 6.
Hang on a sec. Having, you know, met serial killers and everything, they sometimes do their little business in the day.
But see, it was the point she was making. I don't think she was serious. But look how people have reacted when men get told that they're going to have to stay in.
And surely doesn't the violence happen when they're inside anyway with, like, you know, the girlfriend?
Some of it, but some of it is, you know, that it's out in the street, isn't it? That women get attacked, raped. I mean, schoolgirls going to school, accosted, dragged down back streets.
Hang on, that's in the morning.
Sorry, Chris?
In the morning.
Yeah.
So how will them staying in before 6 o'clock?
Well, it means that women can go out and be safe.
Yeah, but schoolgirls go to school in the morning.
Yes, I know, but you asked me about 6 o'clock, so that's why I'm saying. So,
right.
so women can go out and go jogging, whatever they want to do, walk around in the dark, and they'll be safe. But the reaction of men, male commentators, they've been very angry. Well, that's how women, how do you think we felt all this time then, being told that we have to stay in? You know, so now you know how we felt for decades, kind of thing. I mean, obviously, yeah.
You know, young men are getting stabbed, aren't they? Like, you know, that poor guy went to bloody Waitrose to get a smoked salmon bagel, and cream cheese got set upon him and his friend by a gang 16, stabbed.
What was that? I don't know about that. Was that in London?
I mean, why don't the cops carry guns? Wouldn't that be better? There they are with no guns. Isn't it better in America or not?
I don't think so. I don't think that would be a good idea here, culturally. I think it would make things worse, to be quite honest. But that's just my personal view. So anyway, that's the situation with Sarah Everard. But I think, I mean, with anything like this, there's a lot more to it, isn't there? There's how women have seen attitudes to women. I mean, when it was the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, there was uproar because Margaret Thatcher made a comment about those terrible women or something, because his victims were prostitutes, because they were the target of his killings.
Yeah.
And I think the police as well, the attitude of the police at the time, some of the things they came out with, really kicked off a lot of anger. So it's not just the killing of people when it's women because of social attitudes and all the rest of it. There's a lot more gets brought into it. I know what you're saying. Young men, I mean, just look at the amount of young men that die week in, week out on the streets of London through stabbings.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it's more than bad. I mean, it's like Chicago has every week, so many 100 people shot, so many fatalities week in, week out. It's London is a stabbing equivalent. So
I mean, what can we do? It's evil, isn't it? The world's evil. I mean, it's only going to get worse, won't get better.
I don't know. That's why we have laws and pay taxes and vote politicians in to sort this kind of thing out. I mean, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, has said that she is going to take the safety of women and girls out in the street very seriously. And going to be, and she's very angry. She made an announcement about what's happened with Sarah Everard. It's almost like Sarah Everard has been the sacrificial lamb for the manifestation of this social and cultural phenomenon where things are really going to change now. You know, it's not going to be, oh dear, another woman dead. Oh, that's terrible. Move on. I mean, you could say that. I mean, you're quite right to bring up about young men. You could say that about stabbing victims. Oh, another young black man's dead, or whoever. Oh, that's terrible. Move on.
White, the guys are stabbed all white. I mean, just young men. It's not safe. There's gangs, and they sort of prey on lone guys who are walking, or two of them. You know, gangs of white boys and black boys.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it. What is it? The Waitrose incident that you mentioned. They were white boys that got killed.
Yeah, I think the gang was white too. I'm not sure. I didn't say in the story actually.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. There's a lot to do with gangs and
Isn't it death of the church, and no more God, and so they just get cracked on with whatever they want to get cracked on with, people.
I don't know. I think that's probably one aspect to it. There's a whole load of social and cultural phenomenon behind why this is happening. Why are people getting shot in Chicago all the time, week in, week out?
Well, humanity, isn't it, sinking into deeper and deeper depths of depravity, and demonic energies loose, and people not caring about each other, cold-heartedness, money grabbing. The poor get exploited all the time. It doesn't matter about homelessness, and this world's just crueler and crueler and crueler and crueler, really.
It does seem like when you look at it from an esoteric and an energetic point of view, it does seem that way. I mean, you don't see shootouts in the leafy suburbs across the West, do you, generally?
No.
The odd strange incident, maybe, behind the net curtains, but there isn't street violence like there is in poorer areas. So, yeah,
there's sinning out there, isn't there? The sinning in the rich areas. They're exploiting the poor mostly, aren't they? And, they're not being faithful to partners, and there's sin out there, but I suppose there's more suffering in the poorer areas, because the poorer people are the ones that got the pressure piled on them by the richer people, and so they're exploding, aren't they? And there's a lot of hate and anger. And
well, it's very stressful when you live in an area like that, so it's high crime.
Yeah.
And so the stress makes you want to drink and smoke more to cope with the stress, and you have to get taxis everywhere to be safe. So it's kind of like a vicious circle, isn't it? So people do things to help them escape how horrible it is to live where you live in and all the pressures that go with it, and trying to keep safe and trying to just get on with your daily life. And hope you don't get broken into and all the rest of it. So it's not good. I don't know. I think it almost feels like how London was like 200 or 300 years ago. When you read about biographies of London, people have written about the history of London and how they've described it and how dangerous the streets were at one point of London. and all the hazards. It feels like it's gone backwards into that, but we've got
Yeah,
all.
I was reading about that, the slavery of people going about black slavery and wanting repatriation, and yeah, it's a good thing. But there's also white slavery as well. The children from the workhouses, and they were bought and sold.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about the working classes. It's all seems to be black versus middle classes, and oh, look at what you've got as privileged. And they sort of, there's an overlooking of the suffering throughout the ages of the working classes constant. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, there seems to be a lack of knowledge about cultural history, about how.
Working classes haven't voice either.
No, no. I mean, it's the things working class people have gone through in this country. It's absolutely horrendous. I mean, what about being transported to Australia by a
Yeah.
court if you were caught stealing and things like that? Yeah, there seems to be some illusion that anybody who is a white person has loads of privilege, and no, that's only for certain sections of society.
Sections and they always have privilege, and I think it's not a good thing to sort of claw at them and say, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. Surely we're supposed to accept what we're born into. And yeah, it's good to better yourself with an education, but not to want what, middle class people are born into, because we're all born, I think we all take different turns to be born in different races and different situations anyway. And doesn't it say in the Bible, not covet their neighbor's goods? I mean, I covet constantly, but isn't that what we should aspire to not covet, to not say, oh, I want that mansion over there, or I want their life where they've been to Eton and so they get this privileged position in society. I was listening to that David Lammy on LBC,
Mm,
and he was just talking about, yeah, white privilege, and I thought there is no one more privileged than that guy with his
yeah.
massive lack of talent. He's not charismatic. He's not nice to listen to, not at all. And there he was banging on about lack of privilege. I thought it's making me sick, because it's very sinful. It's not godly to be like that, to say, I want what that person, look at that person with all their gold and jewels. I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. Why haven't I got that? It's because I'm black then. It's because I'm black, or whatever, whatever reason. It's just not right. It's sinful. I used to look up to I do look up to black people like James, who I had on the show. He's really cool, I mean, he fights for black rights, but he's not like that. He doesn't want what other people have got.
David Lammy went to a private school and was privately educated, then went to either Oxford or Cambridge. So David Lammy has had a very privileged life, and now
Massive.
he's an MP.
And he's on the radio. It's like Piers Morgan saying he's not. I mean, Piers Morgan has just been dished out, dished out. He's another one that hasn't got. Who they're fighting for him for £10 million right now. He's another one who hasn't got real charisma or anything, and yet he's like held aloft.
Ten
It's not
million pounds. What's that?
fighting for him for their channel. Everybody
What?
wants him.
Oh, I see. Right, because he's left Good Morning Britain.
Yeah.
Right, that was over the weatherman. He had an argument with the weatherman, didn't he, about
Yeah.
Meghan Markle and all that.
I mean, people are sort of privileged in different ways. Talking Meghan Markle, I did find it hard to believe that she felt suicidal because she felt that the royal family were racist. I don't know, in that position, where you've got a guy that loves you, you're in love with him, you've got like loads of mums, you've got the good looks, I mean, wouldn't feel suicidal just because someone didn't like me for the color of my skin. I think I just look at that old, whatever. I kind of found that hard to swallow. She might have felt a bit depressed, but then young people do that these days. They can't handle feeling sad. They feel sad. It's like they go to the GP and get Prozac. My son, he's 17. He knows at least 6 people on antidepressants his age. I mean, come
You're
on.
joking.
Huh, it's okay.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's and loads on drugs as well. It's okay to feel sad, you know? It's okay to feel sad.
Yeah, we
And
seem
all
to
the middle
be.
class kids, the middle class kids, he goes to a middle class school. But you know, when he was younger in this area, it was all like leaving him out because I was a single mother and the kid, or don't play with that kid, you know, and or play with that one over there. They live in a big house, and now all those kids that those parents were like that, they're all on drugs. They're drinking, they're smoking, they're having sex with every girl down every alleyway, and they're on ecstasy and snorting coke and all that. So you know, I just, they kind of teach them these kind of values, but they forget, you know, how about like a warm heart, you know, because a warm heart will make them love themselves as well, and they won't be snorting coke and having sex with every different girl once a week, you know. So that's what's going on in the middle class areas.
Well, the price of riches, eh? Doesn't always bring you happiness. That's
No,
very
the kids are
sad.
very well, yeah, it is sad. And I think, look at those, you know, those mothers who were like that, you know. And one kid said to my son, oh, he was 5, and he said to me, your mother's scum because she's not married. And I thought, whoa, what's, and
What?
yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
was
And
5.
oh yeah, all said
Oh,
in a voice like, yeah,
gosh.
your mother's gone because, you know. And I looked at these kids in that area and I thought they're 50 years of age. They are not like children. They are 50. They are like bankers, the way
Yeah,
they behave
that's
like great Henrys. And now, okay, I knew there'd be trouble when they were teenagers. I knew I could smell it. And now they're teenagers and they're drugging it. They're on drugs. And why are they on drugs? You know, because they've been taught the cold side of life, the nasty, the let's look down at that person, let's not play with that kid, let's not invite that kid to the party. And they see that and people think, oh, I'm just teaching them to mix with the betters. Well, no, it's just teaching them like to cover their heart like with a condom. And if their heart's covered with a condom, they're not going to feel happy about themselves either. So they're going to reach for ecstasy to feel anything good. So it's like abuse, really, that kind of
yeah,
you're better, and all that nonsense. And now they're just screwed up teenagers. And what kind of men are they going to be like? Well, not warm-hearted ones.
if they reach adulthood, in one piece. God, that's really sad. I mean, obviously, a 5-year-old doesn't think those thoughts, so they've had those thoughts put into their heads. I mean, how sad this is, how stupid the class system is in this country.
Oh, the class system. You know, and I would say to any woman that is, you know, has, like me, working class roots and, you know, got a good job, whatever. And, you know, I mean, I was renting, I didn't buy, but some people, you know, they go to a good area. Well, once you get in the schools, it's kind of taken over by the like blue stocking women and the ones that have made like lots and lots of money, and they don't
Sharp
like
elbows, parents with sharp elbows.
yeah, and they don't like. I mean, I would have said that I was working for the Sun at the time, and I suppose I would have, you know, not underlined the working class in me. I mean, you know, I speak in a certain way, and I would have said I was middle class, you know, but it's like they smelt me out and like, you know, sort of pushed me out. This being single was a big part, but I think I would have got the old heave ho anyway. It's like they do a lot of sniffing round you, and then they, you know, and other mothers said it to me as well amongst the girls. It's like, you know, who's doing well, who's in the big house over there, and they teach their kids, you know, and they tell their kids not to play with this certain kid or that one, and you know, they teach them then to be
Yeah,
nasty.
yeah.
You
Putting
know, there
it.
was the one that was being mine non-stop. And I said to them, you know, I said, what about when he's older? If you don't look at that, they were kill blaming my one, you know, and but the others were in a gang. I mean, it was just crazy. Oh, what's wrong with your son? You know, and I had to teach him to fight back. And I said, but that particular boy, the leader, I said, when he's older, he's going to be in trouble. That kid now, he's left school. He just left school.
Mm,
He's. And I said to him, "Where is he?" I said, He's in trouble." And because they didn't help him, because his parents were well-to-do, and oh, can't say your kid's a bully. I mean, he was punching mine like he was a
mm.
punch bag. Now he's like screwed up. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah. Well, if you don't discipline your kids, if you don't instill some sense of right or wrong in them, that's how they end up. If you just think that because they're your child, that they're a little angel or whatever. I mean, it's bizarre. That's not
Yeah.
even parenting, is it?
No, but I knew what was going on with this kid as well. They'd had a Polish nanny from when the kid was born. The mother was working, not curing cancer. She was doing some officey kind of thing. She thought it was a big high rolling. You'd think it was curing cancer. And they didn't see the kid. They didn't see the kid because I went out for a picnic with the kid and the nanny. They never saw the kid, not even at weekends, really. So he was bonded like hell to this nanny, very beautiful Polish 20-year-old. And then she went back to Poland, of course, as they do. You know, she's got her own life, didn't ever see the kid again. To the kid, that was mummy. So, of course, he was acting out in school and punching mine. He was probably punching mine because mine was like soft. You know, I kept his heart intact. So he was seeing that softy kind of and attacking it, attacking the softness in him. But, you know, they wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't listen to anything. Oh, something wrong with your kid to get punched. And that's how hard-heartedness starts. It starts actually by mothers and their sort of, you know, that sort of how it starts in school. I mean, any of the decent areas, they're all commandeered by that kind of attitude. And then sort of, you know, the other people get pushed out to the lesser schools. And that's not right, really. It's sort of, and that's how it starts. All the hard-heartedness and all the coldness, you know, all the
Mm.
lack of thing starts off when people are children.
Well, he
Mothers,
wasn't
you're aware.
parented, was he? That kid. He wasn't parented. He was neglected,
Yeah,
essentially. All right, he had a roof over his head and he had an
privilege.
adult woman to tend to
Mm.
his needs, but he didn't have the essential bit of parenting that molds you as a person. I mean, that's neglect. That's child abuse. But like you
And
said, they can
say
get away with it because of they're rich.
yeah, and they wouldn't, you know, she was the headmistress was bang against me the whole time. And, you know, in the end, I had to go up the school and the kid was sitting there because I'd been on a picnic with him and I knew him. I crouched down. I said, can you not punch Arthur today? It was happening every day. I said, because it makes him sad. And the kid looked at me and goes, okay, like that. And then, of course, the little Japanese teacher came running. Oh, you can't talk to anybody at class. Um, Hauled me to the headmistress's office. She said, "Oh, you haven't done anything wrong. It's okay." But I had a really bad feeling. And then at 6 o'clock that night, she rang me and said I was banned from the school. I couldn't come in. You're not allowed to speak to children at the start of class. And so I then spoke to some editors I knew and wrote it up for the Daily Mail, went in the Daily Mail. Then, of course, GMTV wanted it. I went on TV. And eventually the school then decided to not ban me. And I said, you know, that kid needs help. So they still didn't listen to that. Then I had a meeting with the mother where the mother ripped into me. You can't talk to my kid. You can't. And actually, I regret. I just let her vent. You know, maybe I shouldn't have spoke to him, but I should have. You know, stood up then and said, "You don't parent him. I know all about it because when we were on the picnic, your nanny told me. You know." And then what happened? One of the head girl mothers, she arranged to meet me in town, went to meet her. She said, you need to apologize to everyone. So I see everyone.
Everyone,
Yeah,
why
everyone
everyone?
is the posse of the richos, right?
Oh,
And the middle classes, basically. You have to apologize to everybody, you working class week. And because they thought I had no power. See, well, I had the media power. They got money power. And she said to me, because wouldn't this scenario be really bad? I said, what scenario? She said, well, you know, all the lovely parties. I said, yeah. She said, wouldn't it be terrible and painful for your child if you were left out of them?
that's evil.
I see what, and I at the time again, little mouse didn't say anything. I should have thrown my coffee in her face and said, "You hurt my child. I'll go back to the Daily Mail and I'll be writing about what you're doing. So I think you'll leave my kid into the parties anyway." My son, next few days, this lisping fool that lived near the school. I saw her walking down with all the kids, apart from my son, clutching balloons. And I was just at the traffic lights, and my son looked over and he saw everyone with balloons going to the party, and his little lip went, oh, God. And then I wish I'd have stopped, pulled over, got out of the car and went over and made a scene. But I didn't. And then he was left out of, even I'd apologise. I went round saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Went on GMTV, so sorry. And they left him out every single party, and they would come in, hand out their invitations, and let him sit there screaming in pain. Yeah, I still haven't forgiven them, because you don't torture children. You don't, you don't do that. And then, of course, the other kids see it going on, and they learn to sort of, to be like that. Oh, it's okay yeah, it's okay to shun somebody. It's okay, and now, it's all turned round, because their kids are snorting ecstasy, their kids are smoking and drinking and out, and my kid's straight A. He doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he believes in sex only after marriage. He's a straight A student, so there we go. How did that work out for you, mums?
Yeah, I mean, ostracizing anybody is mentally damaging. It's a really vile thing to do, because it's so damaging to somebody in so many ways. But to teach children, then that's right, and to do that to a child, to knowingly do that to a child as an adult. I mean, I'm not surprised they've ended up the way they have, because the parents have no morals. They have no morals, and they obviously. Well, so what are they? That's it. They've got their money. Is that it? Is that then your money? That's your life. That defines your life. Money and status. And look where it's brought you. It's turned you into a hideous creature. It's a curse. I'm glad they've been cursed by the sound of it, because I know that sounds horrible. I'm being wicked myself, but I think they deserve the punishment. In a way, I think. Well, oh no, I know what you mean. I mean, I've had this kind of thing myself in my life. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I think, yeah, that's what it's, and if the privileged are doing that, and there's the working class who are under pressure, they're under pressure, so their kids are getting the sort of, shouting at, presumably, or whatever, they're having, because they're under stress. I mean, I would hate to bring up my son without money. I'm without money now, and I know it just goes around my head the whole time. And I thank God, my son's a teenager. I mean, it must be horrible to have a baby and a kid, because you need money, you need to feel happy. So for people bringing up children in that state, I mean, that must be awful. And then the kids, the tension. So you got the rich kids taught how to be hard. You got the poor kids who got the stress, and then they grow up and into young people, and then they sort of there's gangs, and there's that poor girl being attacked. I mean, how old was the cop who did it?
He looks like he's in his 30s.
Right.
He's married and he's got a couple of kids. And it just, I think it's been hinted at that he used COVID regulations to abduct her. This is what's been hinted at. Whether there's any truth in it, I don't know. But the latest, I checked the headlines before I came on, and the latest the police are doing is they've cordoned off an area near where they think she was abducted, and to search for forensic evidence in bins and things like that. So there's a suggestion he was on duty and in uniform then in that case. But whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's so sad what you're describing. I mean, what do people get out of that? Have they got low self-esteem? Does it make them feel better about themselves? Do you think that you're better than somebody just because you've got a big house or whatever? It means nothing at the end of the day. It's what's in your soul and what's in your heart that matters, and how you treat other people.
Yeah, those areas. I mean, that's St. Margaret's, I mean, I'm not there anymore. I remember somebody saying to me, oh, I'd love to live in St. Margaret's. And I said, well, you wouldn't, especially not if you've got a kid that's school age, because it's all, take it, unless you've got a banker husband and you've got to be married, but you can't be a career woman. But if you have, if you haven't got the right husband, if you're not the right kind of person, you just get, but it won't be you, because I don't give a shit about them not including me in their little groups or whatever. But your kid, they'll go for the kid. I mean, that woman who sat with me and said it, and they enforced it. They stuck to their guns. Such bitches. I mean, can't believe it. And I remember I was writing about it in the last book I published in For the Kill, and I wrote to one of them, and she wouldn't even like barely speak to me. She goes, what did she say? I can't remember. Oh, speak to my husband. And the husband, oh, we'll get a lawyer against you if you mention us and all this. I said, I don't actually need to mention you. And I see her sometimes actually, walking around Richmond. I just look at her and I think, where did you get off? My son was like 5 and you got off by sort of, giving him a sort of kick in the ghoulies. What kind of individual are you? I mean, what kind of individual is that? I have to wonder.
God knows, one that's lacking in morality and integrity. I mean, yeah, they were little kids, essentially, weren't they? Little kids.
Yeah. And then they see it, there was another woman, a half-caste woman, and my son was friends with her son. And I remember she had a party. She left out my son, and I went and confronted her. She worked in the school, and all the other kids were saying, "Oh, why were you left out, Arthur?" And I went and confronted her. I said, "Why did you leave my son out?" Oh, she goes, "Oh, numbers, Chrissy." They all call me Chrissy. It's not my bloody name, but there we are, Chrissy. She goes, "It's numbers, Chrissy, just numbers." And I thought, what does that mean? And then I found out she invited the kid lives on the big mansion in the corner, even though her kid never played with that kid. It's all, they use their kids for sort of class climbing and hope that their kid will get in with the money crowd. Again, her
Yeah.
kid is not doing any of his lessons. He's in a gang. He's taking drugs. And I thought, yeah, again, that's not surprised. I knew it would happen. I knew it would happen around their teenage years. I could see from how they were being treated when they were like 5, to thinking, well, how will this impact on the teenage years? And I knew it. I knew it would happen. And just to hear it from my son about this one and that one, and this one and that one, and I just think I knew that, from being a troubled teenager myself.
Mm.
My parents are nasty bastards as well, cold and all that coldness going on. Cold-heartedness really affects teenagers. They're trying to find out what the world's about. And if they think that, oh, it's a cold place, they act cold. Oh, I want to be colder. I want to be top dog. Top dog means being colder. And then, of course, not non-feeling, being non-feeling. You need the ecstasy. You need the, I used to sniff glue. Didn't really like drugs, but you need something then, because it just seems that, I mean, you have to learn about love, and love is the only thing that matters really. But and if that's not going on in the world, then it's sort of like, what's the point really?
Yeah, it's
And they're treating girls really badly. They're treating girls really badly. One poor girl gets one different boy every week down the back alley behind the school. I'm like, what the bloody hell? I feel like ringing up, and I suppose
I
you
think you
can't
should.
really.
I think
You
you
think
should.
so?
That's
Yeah.
that's dangerous for all kinds of reasons. Yeah, I think you should speak to them about that.
Yeah,
At least you tried. I mean, at least you'll have tried. And they might do something about it on the quiet. They might not tell you, obviously, but because that's, I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
boys need to be told, and my son says sometimes it makes him sick that there's and boys share on Twitter, oh, I got a BJ off her, and then do a picture of the girl and all that. And even sometimes when they're going out with them, one boy was like, oh, she's always on her knees, my girlfriend. And he says that's how they
that's
talk
how they
about
just
them.
talk about girls.
Yeah. And it's a different girl, all the time. And, he says it's not good to treat girls like that. Although my son says, oh, girls are just silly, and you boys have got to look after them because they're silly. And I'm like, well, not really. But I suppose at least it's good he has that protective feeling.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good that he can see that it's not right to treat another human being like that.
But
God
that's
bless
what's
you.
at the moment, and that's in a middle class school. So that's how they're treating each other, and that's what's going down. And a lot of kids on antidepressants, and they can't handle their feelings either. If they feel a bit sad, they reach for antidepressants. That's because adults are doing that too, though, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. You don't go through a rite of passage anymore, do you? You pharmaceutically go
Yes.
through it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's a time and a place for antidepressants, and some people do need them in various kinds of medication, but people die, people are born, people have accidents, people get ill. It will make you sad. It might make you very, very sad for a while, but it's part of life. I mean, that's why, in a way, if you're lucky and you've got spiritual beliefs, maybe you belong to a church or whatever you faith, you can go and get strength and support from that faith, and it will help you. And the people within that faith will help you cope with that. But yeah, I think you've
Oh,
got made a really good point there about yeah, medicating yourself through life when these are life experiences is part of being a human being.
yeah, even like adults. I mean, I was reading one woman was like, "Oh, I went to my GP when I was going through my divorce, and antidepressants helped me through my divorce." Well, hang on. I mean, it'd be best if you sat there crying and crying, and then at the end of it, we'll look at your choices. Your choices of men, and it can be really, really painful as you like look at. That's what therapy is all about, like looking at reality. And I remember going to a therapist. I've been to many, but one time this guy in Swiss Cottage, and I sat there with him, and I had to let. It was I only saw him a few times, and I laid on the couch, and I was talking about my life, and he started saying, "Oh, you did what? That's a bit mad, isn't it? That's mad to think." And I was talking to him about, oh, I like men who's kind of make me a little bit scared, which I think, that's okay. I've seen that line in a Hollywood movie. And he went, that's completely crazy. And so I went out there, my little legs were all shaky. And I went and looked out the window, and I saw this gorgeous house with somebody had one of those lovely things that you put flowers around, those arches. And all of a sudden reality hit me, and I thought, hang on, why aren't I married? Why don't I have a house of a beautiful arch like that? And he gave me a sort of reality check. I didn't go back. I said, you're too much. But I went out of it and I was depressed. And I went to meet my friend, and I said, I'm really depressed. And she said, you don't have to go back and see that guy. And I said to him, I don't want to go back and see you, David. And I didn't. And he then rang me. He said, if I don't come back, he said, I fear for your future. And I went, oh, what's the matter? I know.
What?
I said,
Paying to
what?
be told that you're nuts every week? Yeah, that's really good
Well,
therapy.
interestingly, he said to me, I fear for your future, fear for your future. And I thought, what's going to happen to me? I'm fine, I'm fine. It's just my relationship with men. But of course, from then on, after I lost the job of the son, I did I tumble, and hit the skids and splatter to the floor. And actually, he was right. And I was emailing him the other day. And I thought about that. If I'd have gone back to him and got busted, as they call it in therapy, I would have felt hugely depressed as I sort of faced my neurosis over certain things, but I would have gotten better. So I think, sometimes really facing reality and having somebody point it out, no matter like the woman having the divorce. Oh, you're left, you're all on your own. Oh my God, oh, I've got to take an antidepressant now to get over that. But instead of like feeling it and maybe forcing yourself to, I don't know, go out with a friend on a date or something like that, I think if you hide from reality in antidepressants or hide from reality in any kind of way in neurosis like myself, I think you do end up in a bad place. Actually, you do.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is when you come out the other side, potentially that experience can give you strength and make you stronger to cope with other experiences. and you might get an opportunity to do something, and before that you might have thought, oh no, I can't do it. You know, you were too scared. But because you came through something difficult and scary and you came out the other end, you might think, well, I got through that, so I'm going to try this. You
Yeah.
know, so sometimes in a strange way, the harshest experiences that you have, I'm not saying all experiences, obviously, but sometimes the harshest experiences you have can be the greatest teachers in many ways. And I mean, who would you rather be? Would you rather be somebody that had had a hard life, but that hard life made you turn out to be a compassionate person who understood things about people? Or would you rather be a shallow person who just had everything easy, but because everything was easy, you ended up shit creek basically because you haven't had the boundaries or you haven't had the proper emotional input. I mean, it's like when you're a pet, when you bring up kids, it you know if your parents did care about you because they might have been giving you discipline, they might have disciplined you, and at the time when you were growing up, you thought, oh, this is terrible, life is unfair, blah blah blah, typical teenager, whatever. But when you look back, you think, well, actually, that was really hard and stressful for them, but they did it because they had my best interests at heart. It's a bit like that kind of thing, but on a wider scale.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not all, you
Well,
know.
I thought about, yeah, those privileged women who thought it was okay to sort of, leave kids out, and it's terribly painful, just to whatever. I mean, class climb or whatever. Yeah, I do think a lot of they were pretty kind of spoiled. A lot of them had gone from daddy's little princess with the horse and the pink bedroom, through to a husband who acted like they were princesses, when I looked at them and thought, actually, you're a bitch, can't they see that?
Yeah, yeah.
But that kind of coddling where you're really special. And I used to think, hang on now, because I knew they thought they were special. Honestly, those women from there, they reminded me of like that L'Oreal advert, because you're worth it. But they had that stamped all over them. And they walk round like it. You see it written on every pore, that they thought they were special and they deserve. But how in contact with reality is that? It's not. It's actually okay. You could live and die like that, and they probably will. But actually, that is out of context of reality, because what have they done really
Yeah, but the
to
one the
what?
one factor is money, and if that money got taken away,
Money's very rarely taken away. Not when someone else is saying that to me. Oh, the COVID, but no, mostly the lot I'm talking about, they that pretty much owned houses, and so the money isn't really going to go. So I think they'll probably die like that, really.
but if they did lose everything, they wouldn't be able to survive, would they? Because they wouldn't have a clue. They
No.
wouldn't have a clue about how to be poor, how to survive and be poor, like we
Mm,
do.
mm,
Um,
mm.
so that's not dependent on your skills or your intelligence or your life experience or the things that most people's characters are comprised of. Uh,
Yeah.
it's all the same thing. Money. I don't know, Chris. I just don't understand it, how things are. I mean, when I used to work in the prison here and I used to see some of the prisoners, I worked in a men's prison. Um, there wasn't a lot of healthy, well-adjusted young men that I saw. I saw a lot of people who obviously looked like they'd come from deprivation. I saw men in the bodies of what looked like 12-year-olds. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe how, because they obviously had been undernourished most of their lives. I saw men with bloody learning disabilities and things who shouldn't have been in a prison. And I'm thinking, we're in the 21st bloody century, and people like this are in a oh, all right, I don't know what they've done, so I'm talking at my bum a bit. But I'm thinking, this can't be right. This can't be right at all. There's something going badly wrong here if we're still putting people like this in prison. I mean, obviously, some people that were there needed to be there for whatever reason, but so, but some of the way some people live. I mean, until I lived in Salford, I had absolutely no clue people in this country lived like that, and I had to live with bars on the inside of my windows to keep people out, and a metal thing on my back door to keep people out, and they still got in and burgled my house. I had no clue people lived like that with such high levels of deprivation, and outside of law and education meant absolutely nothing to them. They didn't live by the rules that the rest of society lived by. They're like pockets of another culture. And I thought, how do people get like this when nobody could hardly read and write? That was a shocker. Everybody was coming in and out of prison. That was normal. Because I was a single mum on my own with kids, I flew under the radar. So people just thought I was just another single mum. I was actually a student at university, but so I got, just talking to neighbours and people like that, and just seeing what was going on around me. I just thought, this is insane. How do things end up like this? I mean, you could argue about social responsibility, but what, everybody at once decides they've got no responsibility and they all decide on this life? I don't think so. Something's gone on, hasn't it? For it to end up like that. So that's the other extreme. So I don't know. Both extremes don't seem to end up with very healthy people, healthy adults and healthy kids at the end of the day.
Women do have a lot of power, because they're the mothers.
Yeah.
Hand that rocks the cradle and all.
Yeah. They do. I was talking to my friend, came to see me on Saturday. I hadn't seen him for a while. I said, he's a man. I am friends with a man. And he said it was toxic femininity that bothered him more than toxic masculinity in this world right now. I said, you've got a point there. I said that we talk about, toxic femininity a lot on the show and our experiences of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the mothers are a very powerful. Oh, how can you describe it? They're almost omnipresent, aren't they?
Yeah, they are powerful. If they're putting over that, if they haven't got any character built and they're giving their sons that sort of, or there's the other way, isn't there? That sort of neglect. And I mean, but it's neglect anyway, I suppose, to teach your son that he's better than this person, or that the color of his skin or their marital status. And gosh, there's not single bashing. The single bashing if you're a mother, the single bashing if you're just single. There's massive single bashing constantly, I think, and nobody really.
What, that's your experience?
Yeah, it's my experience. I just don't like it. And everybody, you're not allowed to say this about this person, that against that, but you're okay to just completely, it's okay to sort of act as if single people are weird and then single mothers are like hookers or something. I mean, all it is if you're a single mother, yeah, it just means your relationship hasn't worked out. I mean, what the hell? It doesn't mean anything else, but you would think it means that you, I don't know, get gangbanged every weekend and enjoy it. That's how I felt, certainly in St. Margaret's. I mean, I really did. I just, that feeling as if you were sexually dirty or something.
Well, it's
And I
another
felt
form
like
of discrimination, really, isn't it?
discrimination. I felt like saying, hang on, you're the people having sex all the time. I haven't had sex in years. But that's how they acted towards you, as if you were like that. And it was horrible. And I remember one woman, it was the same one, the one that left my son out, even though her and her son were very close. She said, oh, there was this, it's not really funny actually. There was this single mother who had this little boy, and I think he was 9 at the time, and he was looking at pornography on the internet. Now I found out through my son, and because he was like, I don't know, he was bringing in. No, he was telling the other kids about it, and some of it was like, disturbing. So I went up to school, and there was she in reception, and she goes, "Oh, what you here for?" I said, "You know that kid? You know that one?" Because ours were in the same class. I said, "You know the kid? He was a Polish kid." I said, "He's telling the other boys about one." And she goes, "Oh, but Kissy, that's nothing really to do with you, is it? Just tell Arthur to stay away from him." I thought, what? What?
Who said that?
The one, the other kid's mother, so the little Polish kid was looking at pornogaphy, and I was going up the school to alert the headmistress to tell, not to be a
tittle tattle, but out of concern.
exactly. And so this other mother was working in reception, and when I told her why I was there, she said, "But why are you bothering?" She said, "Just tell your." I know.
Well, because that's horrendous. It's actually it's an offence to show a child. If you're an adult and you show a child something, that is a criminal offence.
Well, he was looking on his own, I think, this
Yeah, I
kid.
know,
Anyway,
but what I'm saying, it's the principle of it. So if
that was principal, yeah. She said, she said, oh God, she said, just tell your kid to avoid him. This is the same one that left my kid out of the party. I thought, what do you mean tell my son to avoid him? So not only is the poor kid looking at bloody pornography, it was homosexual pornography as well. Not only is he looking at pornography, I know, not only was he looking at that and no adult was giving a shit, she told me to ostracize him as well. I thought, you absolute bitch.
That's ridiculous because kids can start acting out things at school.
Oh, I know. And then not only that, in the same conversation, oh God, I should have said something, but I didn't, again, as usual. She said to me, well, he's with a single parent family. It's a single mother. Now she knew etched in gold I was a single mother. It was her favorite thing to say. I don't know how you cope. I really don't. I couldn't without my Sam. I just don't know what I'd do. You must be so tired all the time. And then next thing she has a party and invites all the boys. My son is left out. And literally, it was a very tiring weekend, so I had to make it up to my son. See, we had to go to Hamleys. I had to buy him all toys. I had to buy him pizza because they were eating pizza. It cost me 50 quid. And by the end of the weekend, I was even more tired. So, thank you. Anyway, she says to me when I'm up there, she says to me, "Oh, why are you here? Don't bother. Just tell Arthur not to play with him." I said, "Well, I'd rather not leave a child out." And then she goes to me, "Well, he's parent of a single mother." And I looked at her and I thought, is she getting at me? Obviously, I should have said something, but I didn't.
It was an opportunity to get a dig in, but
yeah. And then
these people live on.
Yeah. And then she said to me, I said, "But what has that got to do with it?" And she went, "Well, come on, where is she getting her sex from? She's single, so obviously she'll be getting her sex from a computer."
She actually said that.
Said to me, yeah, I know, and I'm such a mealy mouth. I didn't say anything.
What an absolute weirdo.
Oh, it's horrible. It
sounds like somebody who's had a very, very sheltered life. And they haven't got a clue about real life. Oh, dear God.
But that was the single bashing that went on, and they were all like that, all the single bashing. I can only think that they were very unhappy with their husbands, maybe, and they maybe thought, "Oh, if you're single, you're free, and you don't have to get pounded every night by some milk bottle sop that you don't actually fancy," because the husbands were very they weren't very attractive, actually. That's me being bitchy.
Okay, yeah, so they'd sold their souls then.
It must be that. But I didn't care for just the non-stop single bashing that went on. I mean, it really did. And even, to have that quip, it was absolutely awful. And I went into their headmistress's office, and I told her, she acted in a weird way, as if, "What are you doing?" And then she kept saying, "Oh, and Arthur this." And I said, "Hang on a sec, I will deal with Arthur. It's not, but he doesn't like hearing it off the kid. But that's, I will speak to him about it and say, just tell the kid, don't share that with me." I said, "But what are you going to do about the actual kid, this poor little kid looking at stuff. And she looked at me as if to say, well, it's, none of your business. I thought, well, it actually is my business.
If it's affecting your son, it is your business. Yeah, quite right.
I felt sorry for this little kid. His mother was, seemingly she was over from Poland, and she was off with a different guy, each week. And sometimes he would come home and try and get in the house. And, a new guy would answer and say, "I'll go clear off, clear off." And, oh gosh, she's just depressed. Actually, I don't know what's happened to that kid. He was self-harming. So when he turned into a teenager, he was busy self-harming.
Yeah,
So,
that's extremely sad.
but you see, these bitches, these other women, they could have taken that kid under their wing. They could have made sure that that kid got taken back to their mansions and treated really well, and looked after him and looked out for him. But when he was told to clear off from her house, he had nowhere to go because these women had left this kid out, leave the Polish kid out. Well, he's got no money. He's not from a sort of rich family. And that's the way it went on. You didn't have any community, any sense of, well, they had a sense of community, all the richos. They all went to, seemingly on Friday night, they all went off to have dinner, the women, and then the men would go off to the pub, and then the men would come back. So that's what they were doing. But, I mean, just, do you need that clickiness? Why not include everyone? And even if you're not going to include the parents, why not just at least include the kids? And then that kid wouldn't have felt left out.
In
So
other words, create a community that was supportive.
yeah, but you can't have a supportive community when people are class climbing.
No, that's it. I mean, when I've been at this taught me a big life lesson. When I've been at my poorest, just about when I was at my poorest, when I was a single mum with my oldest son, and where I lived on the council estate in Barrow. There's nothing wrong with council estates, by the way. But everybody around me, we were all like in the same boat, and I got more help there from people who would, if you were ill, they'd knock on, go to the shop for you, lend you the last £5, bend over backwards to help you, do all kinds of things. Because everybody we were all equal. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't like all this stuff going on. Everybody was kind of had different sort of things. And the tightest people I have ever come across are people with money and middle class people who don't know what it's like to be poor and go without, who wouldn't dream of lending you any money to help you out when you really needed it. So there's something about, actually, yeah, I watched a really interesting series about slums once around the world. And the one factor that came out of it is no matter how poor people are, dirt poor, I mean, literally living in poo, they will form a community and they will all support each other. And it just seems to happen naturally. So it seems like it's a human thing. And out of that kind of, leaders kind of naturally evolve, and most of the time in this sort of documentary series, it seemed to be guys, but it can be women as well, obviously. But it seems to naturally evolve. But it was people who were dirt poor, but they all helped each other, and this is what I found. People do all kinds of things to help me. I've never had that anywhere else where I've lived, but I had it back home. I think, and generally the town where I came from, with apart from the people at the managers and stuff like that, everybody was in the same boat, and so there wasn't this. There was kind of a bit of competitiveness, but it was over stupid little things like who got a nice coffee table. It was like material things, but on a lower scale, and it's because people didn't have that much money. But there was like an equilibrium of people. Everybody sort of, there was like a closeness in the community because everybody was the same, and so we weren't competing. And so there was a community formed. Now it's a bit sad that it's around like nuclear submarines and things like that, but it was there. So I think that's interesting. And then what you've described is an absolutely fragmented community, which is got a lot of nastiness in it, and that's deeply sad. You would think, wouldn't you, it would be the other way around, and they could be magnanimous, and because they've got all those privileges, they would try and help other women and other parents and kids that don't have what they have. But instead, they just tended to gloat and sort of use their advantages to make you feel bad and to look down on people and feel good about themselves. And I just think that's deeply sad. I think it's so ugly, isn't it? It's so deeply ugly.
It is, yeah.
Who's better off in the end, though, you or them? Ultimately, you know, what have they achieved in their lives?
Yeah, not much.
No, exactly. So, I mean, a lot of it with women is jealousy, and it's like when we've had the Sheikh guy on, and what was it he said about? Do you remember when he was on about the gin? And he said, you get a block of flats or something, and there'll be like a woman who's jealous, and she'll cause havoc, and is it because she's got a gin in her or something? Causes havoc. Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah. Oh well. Well, it's 10 past the hour. Do you want to carry on for a bit longer?
I suppose I've got to do the school run, even though my son's older, I'd sort of pick him up. So I best kind of get ready for it.
Okay. Well, it's been a good chat anyway, and we've covered some societal issues, but yeah, I'm glad we talked about Susan Everard, because I think this is going to end up being quite a big phenomenon, really. That's why I wanted to talk about it. For some reason, it's one of those things, isn't it? This has just tipped everything over the edge. It's like the straw that brought the camel's back. So I think this is going to be with us for quite a few months to come in the future. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and the developments. But yeah, that you know, it did feed into what you described about how people treat each other and attitude, and women, and how women treat each other, and you know, safety, being safe, and being because you're not safe when you're in a place like you described. Your son wasn't safe, was he, in a way? Not because of any fault of yours, but not safe emotionally when you're exposed to that.
No, he wasn't safe emotionally. He got good battering by that, you know, he did. He got a good battering, and I tried to keep his feelings intact because I'd been through primal therapy and I knew what you needed to keep your feelings intact. But he got a battering at that school, and he shouldn't have. I mean, I had a choice. I was living in a working class area when it came to the school age. I could have stayed there, gone to the working class school, and I thought, well, no, I want to go to the middle class area, move there and get him in that school because the education will probably be better. And I didn't want him, you know, sometimes people in West London do that where they put on a Cockney accent, even though nobody's in East London. And, you know, they do it just, it's lazy speech, really. And I didn't want him, I just didn't want him slipping into that, because when when I went into care, I sort of started talking like that, and it makes you kind of feel inferior to people sometimes. Yeah, it mocked me. It's just silly, and I didn't want him doing that. I just thought, oh no, I can't bear it. So we moved over, and it ruins your chances in life too. And so I moved over to this area, and I thought, he would be better off. But now I think it was stupid that he would have been better off at the working
but you
class
had
school.
his best interests at heart, and it was the good intentions. And the thing is, you're emotionally intelligent, and that counts for a hell of a lot when you're bringing up kids. If you've got emotional intelligence, you know what kids are like. They pick up on things. You don't even have to say things. And kids pick up on stuff. You know, kids are like sponges. So you've probably, brought him up really healthy compared to those other kids anyway. All right.
Yeah, he's a good he's a good kid. He's a good kid. But he did go through that battering, and he sort of didn't
You helped
need
him come
to.
out the other side, though, didn't you? You didn't just leave
Yeah.
him to stew in his emotional pain. You talked him through it. And that's the main difference. All right, then. So we'll end the show here. Thanks very much for bearing with us, listeners. Hope you found. We hope that you found the content of our show interesting, maybe some talking points. We'll keep you updated on the Sarah Everard, situation over the weeks. We'll just touch on it briefly if there's any developments in further shows. But thank you very much for listening. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed the show, and thank you, Christine, for sharing your personal experiences, because the personal is political, as us feminists have always claimed it is very much. And you had some painful memories, but art's come out, a sound young man, so you should pat yourself on the back for that.
Well, thank you.
Yep, got a good mum there. All right, so thank you, and I'll end the show here.
Thanks very much, Donna, for sharing and updating us all about that case.
No problem. It's like I said, I mentioned it because I think it's really going to go huge, this. So, okay, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks, everybody, for listening. See you next week. Thank you, Donna,
Yep.
very much.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.